Welcome to Slightly Off Script, the marriage show where we remind you that marriage can be stupid good and wicked fun. I am one of your hosts, Bethany Needham, but honestly, the lesser of the two, because next to me is the ever incredible, my favorite human being, Andrew David Needham.
Oh, full name. Am I in trouble?
It actually kind of sounded like that. As I was saying it, I realized it sounded like I was scolding you.
Yeah.
I wasn't, though. I was trying to brag on you.
I don't know.
I'm kind of your biggest fan.
You're going to just try to, every time, make the intro more and more awkward for me? Is that the goal?
A little bit. You want to know the only thing more awkward than the intro that I just did?
What would that be?
And by awkward, I mean hilarious. I got a text message this weekend that was probably the most random, but I'm going to put it up there as...
Random. Oh, I know where this is going.
It's one of the most hilarious things. For me, I know it was creepy for you.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah. I got a text message from a friend with a photo, and she didn't give me a lot of detail other than, hey, I'm at this retreat and I see this. And it was something, and like I saw your name, but the photo...
more scandalous than it is.
The photo took a while to upload. All of a sudden, I get this photo of, I don't know who, wearing these beautiful socks with your face and hearts all over them. And no context. I was like, I'm very confused.
You forwarded to me and said, do you know who this is? I'm like, I don't want to know. I'm not sure I want to know.
That was my favorite part. I'm like, if these exist, Andy clearly knows. There's a story behind it. You know, just think about that. Like, it's your face with hearts. Somebody is clearly wearing these socks, and you had no idea. Which actually made it even funnier for me. But I did get the backstory.
Like a failed Yankee swap gift that didn't arrive in time from a former staff member that I worked with.
Yes, but they never told you about them.
So now, is it like that person's dad is wearing them?
Gifted it to their dad.
I've never met before.
I feel like you should meet.
I don't know.
If you do meet him.
I guess we'd be good friends.
I hope he's wearing those socks, and photos need to be taken. I'm just saying, that tops my awkward intro.
Well, how was your weekend? What's a highlight for you?
Oh, our daughter came home. Got to hang out with her some this weekend. And yeah, it's kind of fun having college kids. It's fun, and also it's an adjustment.
Yep. Because
I realized that you and I sort of have this, I don't even know, way that we live in our home that is different than when there are kids here.
There was a lot more Oreos and baked goods, and I was like, make sure she takes these things back to college. I don't care if she goes into her boyfriend, they go to the guy's dorm, I don't care. I do not want this stuff left in my house. Yes.
I do want to give a shout out, though, to our daughter, who hopefully she won't kill us for sharing this story, but it's so hilarious I cannot share it. Is I got a text message.
It seems like how these stories start for you.
I was going to say a lot of text messages this week, but this text message was our daughter informing me that she had just failed her first math test.
Those words together are unusual. I mean, she's going to do fine. She'll pass the course, no problem. But that's unique.
It's very, very unusual, which is why my response was, I'm so sorry.
Yep.
You know, are you okay? What happened? Because I thought, maybe I remember being in school. Like, sometimes there's a lot that goes on in college. You're kind of off, whatever, you blow a test. So I write her back, is what happened? Our daughter, who in this moment was so your daughter, this is your sense of humor through and through. I get this text message back. So I'm like, what happened? She texted back, I probably wrote the wrong answers.
It's fair enough. Well, went wrong. I probably wrote the wrong answers. That's great.
Like, what do you even write back?
Yep, you probably did. Yep.
Very astute.
That's very good. Very self-reflective.
Yes.
She usually does. So that's good.
I think I did write her back something. Did you study the wrong answers? And she writes back, I hope not. These are conversations with your college kids. So,
and you also decorated our house for Christmas.
Yeah. I feel like I'm not even shy putting it out there that in America, which is where we are.
The United States of America.
The United States of America, I'm early, apparently, for this Christmas decorating, but I need everyone to understand that I grew up in Canada and our Thanksgiving has already happened. It has passed. We were basically just waiting for Halloween to end so that I could go nuts. And that's what I did. All of this attitude I get from people about Thanksgiving hasn't happened yet. I'm like, you're Thanksgiving. Okay. So yes, we are decorated. I have started the Christmas movies. Pentatonic's Christmas album is cranking in my car when I drive. We're all in.
See, the thing is, I don't mind our house being decorated. And we have one thing we have learned in our marriage is that you find a day that I'm away traveling and it's like the elf comes out and the house, I come home and it's all done. And I like it. But the chaos of the decorating part, I did notice that you hid some bins in our daughter's room. You need to get those in the attic. So that
you weren't supposed to see those.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Truthfully, I feel like it took us a long time to find our groove in this because there were some fights that would happen leading up to Christmas because I put a lot of expectation into what decorating, getting the tree, all of that looked like. And you were kind of a Grinch.
A realist.
No,
not a Grinch. I'm not a Grinch. No, I'm not. I love Christmas. You know that. I just love different parts of Christmas than you love. So that means you call me a Grinch. I love the part that's about Jesus.
Okay. Apparently we haven't worked through this, so we're going to fight now. Yeah. No, not right now. We'll fight later.
I want it to be authentic. I'm just going to like bring some animals in, throw hay down. No, just kidding. You love the animals part, though.
I was going to be like, dare you. I dare you. Bring the goats in.
No, we're not doing
They
that.
will live here. No, we have figured it out, and it's taken time, and it doesn't look like everybody's traditions. I know a lot of people have those adorable ones where they bring the kids all together, and everyone hangs ornaments, and everyone's involved.
Like, get away from my tree.
I'm just going to be honest, from very early on, we would all get the tree together, and then I'd be like, everybody get out.
Get out.
And then
Sounds like the Grinch to me.
Kind of. It's like an elf.
I don't know what you are, like, yeah.
Elf meets Grinch or elf
Jerky
on a bad
elf.
day.
Yeah.
That's fine. Maybe I'm a South Pole elf.
Elf on a stick.
Okay, that was actually very well played. Hurt a little, stung a little. We should probably get into the show today.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to actually start by having a listener question. So this is from our friend Katrina, and we met her on a mission trip in Mexico. Their family came to New England. Her and her husband serve at a church in Connecticut, and they have 40 kids or something like that? I don't know. How many?
Sure.
How many do they? I don't know. Is it 5? What is it?
Yeah, I love that you went with 40.
I figured I'd just shoot a little high. All right. So here's Katrina's question.
So would you rather be able to go back to the start of your marriage and do it all again, knowing what you know now? Or would you like to know what's going to happen for the rest of your marriage and be able to go into the future with foresight?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I also was thoroughly entertained that after your 40 kids joke that you can hear a baby in the background.
There's always a baby.
That's fantastic. So would you rather? No, that's my answer.
C, none of the above.
None of the above. Both of those kind of sound like a nightmare.
All right, but if you were forced to choose foreknowledge of what's ahead or being able to go back to the beginning, but being who you are today, what would you pick?
Okay, if I had to choose, I'd go back. Being who I am today, I think. But honestly, no.
It kind of reminds me of the Back to the Future thing where it's like you're going to mess something up and all of a sudden all the dominoes are going to go off.
Yeah.
I would be the same as you, I think. Yeah.
You can't choose the same.
Well, that's not fair. There's only 2 options.
You have to know everything that's coming.
I don't think I want to know.
That's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I've always joked that if anything ever happens to you, I am not remarrying because...
Took you this long to get me in line.
No, it's just you go into it and you don't know what to expect, so you kind of grow.
So I ruined you. You're like, no, I cannot do this.
You
again.
Broke me.
Okay. Well, on that lovely note, let's talk about our marriage values. It's so cynical. This is supposed to be the positive. Like, we're telling people how awesome marriage can be.
I think it's because it's the afternoon and our sass is kicked in.
Yeah, the sarcasm is like, that's at an 11 right now for you.
All right.
All right.
I'll take it down.
Okay. We were thinking about this podcast. We said, hey, we need to kind of frame what we're going to talk about around some core values. And we tried to synthesize. And we just started using the whiteboard, and which is always, how good brainstorming happens. And we kind of had just some different words, and then we kind of wordsmithed it. And we came up with 4 values. And then we observed if we shuffled them around in order that we could build an acrostic.
Yeah.
So do you want to share like what they are and how that came out?
Absolutely. So I love that in the end, when we shuffled it all around, it actually spelled camp, because that's
a lot of our life has been spent at camp. So camp, the C in that is what we're going to talk more about today, which is community. And then A is for authenticity. M is mission, and P is play. That's great.
Yeah.
And we'll expound. We're going to take the next couple episodes, and each episode will focus on one of those values. And so why don't we talk a little bit about what we mean by community, what it is, and then we'll also talk about what we do not mean, what it is not. So why don't you start on the what it is?
One of the big things when I think about community and what it is trusted and safe. I think that's an important part, really, of anyone that we let in that sort of inner circle, being able to have those people around them that they can trust with not just the highlights of their marriage, but the really hard stuff. And that those people are people who are safe with that information, that aren't throwing everything on the prayer chain and just the dangers of sharing things like that. So yeah, trusted and safe is a big one. We've talked a lot about that those are people that push you back towards your covenant. This is a high value for both of us, that these voices that speak into our marriage aren't ones that are trying to pull us apart, or even just me having people that are, Team Bethany and Andy's a jerk or whatever, or vice versa. Finding those people that even if Andy's being a jerk, that those people are still invested in really guarding our marriage and wanting it to grow and to thrive. So those are some big ones for me. What about you?
I think of community as concentric circles. You look at the example of Jesus, like he had his inner 3, James, Peter, and John, and then there was the 12, and then there was the 70, and then there was the 200. And in a similar way, like we need to have sort of concentric circles of community. And the closer people get into those circles, the more aligned we need to be. Trust is going to be more important because we're going to be entrusting to people more of our story and more access and permission to be able to speak into things. That's a big thing. And then I would say this is a little bit wordy, which kind of sounds like me. It is a cultivated ecosystem. And what I mean by ecosystem is like in the world, you have all these different things that coexist and they feed into each other. And so like the sun and the moon and the tides and the rain and all these things come together to produce life. And so it's cultivated, though. Adam and Eve, even before the fall, they had to work the garden. God has given us the work to do of cultivating community, and something that like we do not accidentally get great community. It has to be worked for and cultivated. Sometimes that is pruning. Sometimes that is being wounded or having like a natural disaster go off. We have those things that happen in our lives, but that is a big thing. And then another word that I use all the time, whether it's about the church or other things, but it's a mosaic. Like it's not about finding people that are the same. One, you don't find that in marriage. I'm thankful that I'm not married to somebody who's exactly like me, because that would be a miserable marriage.
It's not that bad. You're a great guy.
Yeah, I don't know. However, the similar principle applies in our community, that we have people that can fill different roles. And just like in our marriage, we don't want to put the full weight of every part of our relationship on one person. That's why we need a community. In the same way, in our community, we have different people with different giftedness. So, yeah. So what is community not?
Well, one of the things that has, especially at this stage in our marriage, is the realization that it looks different in different seasons of our life.
Yep.
And I have been guilty for sure of struggling with sometimes just almost holding on to a previous season and wanting community to look a certain way, and rather than being sort of that flexible, being willing to look at, okay, what does life actually look like right now, and what does it mean to cultivate community in this season. Realistically, when we were younger, our kids were younger, I actually felt like for me, in some ways, community was easier in terms of getting together with other wives or moms when our kids were little. They were not in school yet, and lots of connection and things like that. And then it got harder when our kids got older and busier and they weren't driving yet. So we were driving them everywhere.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just those shifts. And even now, this has been kind of true of our story, being the age we are and having our kids grown and gone. We're having to sort of figure out, what does community look like, which we've said to friends, you know what, at this stage, we have probably more flexibility than some of our friends. For us, it means being willing to like make the drive and go to people's homes and sit with them and spend time with them. And so, yeah, just it looking different in different seasons is a big one.
One thing that is true for us in probably a more acute way, but I think everybody experiences this a little bit, is that you find relationships in community where people might be the same age or the same step in their vocational pursuits or the same stage in their parenting. And it's, partially because we got married young and had kids right away. Like, I've had to learn, that's the mosaic part, is that I'm going to have people, like the people that are going to speak into my parenting that have been where I've been are going to be probably quite a bit older than me, because, we're in our 40s and have kids in college. But that doesn't mean that I can't have people that are my age to speak into my personal development or vocational development. Again, that's why that mosaic thing is so important.
I agree. And I think that's part of being intentional with your community and not just surrounding yourselves with people that sound like you and look like you and do everything like you, but having that mix of voices and ages and stages is huge. Because I know for me, I've learned so much, even just in terms of our marriage and our family, from those people, like older retired couples who I've just learned from watching them or listening to them, but also my young mom friends and watching them and in their own journey. So it's definitely something that takes real intentionality, though, to do, because otherwise, honestly, busyness, I guess, confession, it would be easier sometimes to just hang out with you all the time and not bother inviting other people into that circle.
What else is marriage not? Or community, that too. Marriage and community.
I was about to be like, this could apply to both.
Yes.
It is not easy. Community is not easy. I think there's a fun part of having people in our lives and our friends, but when you're really actually walking life with people and you're in deep community where you're sharing not just the good things and the fun things, but also the hard things, it's not easy to do. And again, we could overuse the word intentionality, but it could be easy to just have fun with your friends and call that community. And I think where the work comes in is when there are times to have those hard conversations or to be vulnerable about, hey, we're really struggling right now, and could you pray with us?
Let's back up even a little bit more, though. Like, I know for me, about a decade ago, I was in a transition in life, and I realized that, I'm naturally wired to be a connector of people. So I have a phone full of contacts, and I have a lot of like acquaintances, and I would even say a lot of friends. But I realized that I didn't have that inner circle of community, that like really close group of people, like people that knew me and walked with me, the people that you text every day and talk to every week. That required me finding somebody and finding two guys who had what I didn't have, and being willing to put myself out there and being like, will you be my friend? Please check yes or no. It was not like that. But it was kind of that risk factor. And, I've had other relationships I pursued where it's like, it's either been hurtful or just has not gone anywhere. And that happens sometimes. And it could be my fault too. Like maybe I didn't show up in the right way. But this has helped to have really close relationships and have people that, like you said before, are pushing me towards covenant and are not marriage saboteurs. I think one of the main dangers that we see as a thread when people struggle in marriage is it's very easy to find yes people who will agree with you in your dysfunction and kind of just affirm. Now, it's very different if there's something like you're physically unsafe or emotionally being abused or those type of things. So we want to be careful not to say that. Like those are situations where you've got to find people that are going to say, hey, we need to step back and get out of this situation, maybe towards reconciliation, maybe not. But it's another thing when it's just what I would maybe call the ordinary dysfunction of life, our ordinary sinfulness that shows up, that we would find community and find people that would be willing to push us back towards our covenant, back towards repentance is a really, really key thing.
Yeah. No, and I agree. That term marriage saboteur, it's one of those where I know in circles with women, sometimes this can be such an easy thing to fall into, like the complaining about something about our spouse, and then, the girls all get around and it's like it becomes, I don't even know, what do they call it? The hen house? Like it just all the girls go crazy, and it has this sound of like support. We're all coming around each other. Oh, girl, I got you. And there is a part of like loving our friends and obviously supporting our friends. But then there's the other side of actually being the friend that's willing to say the hard thing. And what is it in Proverbs where it talks about the
wounds of a friend?
Yeah, better are the wounds of a friend than the kisses of an enemy.
Yeah.
And I think of this often in my friendships. Again, like you said, there's different circles of friendships, but when it comes to that sort of inner circle of friendships, that's one of those things that to me is a non-negotiable. Like I need to know that my inner circle, if I am saying something or they see something, if you see something, say something. Y'all, it's like an airport everywhere. Like speak up and in love, obviously. And that comes back to that's sort of those areas where this is the part of community that's not easy because it's not fun to do that, but just the benefit of that in relationship. And we need that in our marriages.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's pivot, and we have some other questions that we're going to answer. And this comes from some close friends of ours. Chris is one of my best friends, and Laura is one of your best friends. And we're going to get into these questions from Laura. So are you ready?
I don't know.
Hello, mates. It's Shearsha Bogdum Turf Cutter. I'm here to ask a very important question. Bethany and Andy, if you could assign a fruit for each other, what do you think each other's fruit would be?
You have to give some backstory to this.
She is going to kill you for introducing her by name. You outed her. What was it? Shearsha
I don't know.
What in the world?
Apologies to the nation of Ireland and to any of our Irish listeners.
I don't think Ireland wants to claim that.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, gosh. I think the only backstory is this is why her and I are really good friends.
Okay. There was another one that she sent in. I don't know if this is going to play right.
Shanae from Arkansas. I have a very important question for Bethany and Andy. Bethany and Andy, what does Netflix and chill mean? I hear it all the time. I just don't understand what it means.
We'll have to send her a private message on that one.
But I think it has something to do or benefit.
Oh, gosh. This is why you need good friends and good community, because these are when you ask for questions, and this is the response that you get.
I think they should know us well enough to not send us this type of material without knowing that it might make its way into what we produce.
Yeah, so. I think I was going to say Laura is going to kill you, but then she's probably also not going to be surprised. No. But
we have a serious question, though.
Wait, you didn't answer either of her questions.
Okay,
how do you know they're not serious?
I have
one word.
No. We're not answering that question.
I think we all know.
No, that's for a different show. That's the Way Off Script show. Okay.
Follow me.
Regroup.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, I think this is a serious question. We'll see how this goes.
With the holidays coming up, Bethany and Andy, what holiday traditions did you each have separately with your families? And how did it work when you brought them together?
I have an answer for this one. We've had to deal with the fact that our family dynamics are radically different in terms of extended family dynamics, gatherings. So explain like your extended family. You have 4 siblings who are all brothers, but they're spread out. You don't have any aunts and uncles.
Well, my dad's an only child.
Yeah.
And my mom is from a family of 4 kids. But yeah, my family was not like your family. We weren't getting together for every single holiday I've never even heard of before.
Yeah. So my mom is one of 9 children, and my dad's not far behind that in his family. And so like aunts and uncles, cousins, and a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are concentrated in New England. And so it is, you know, if it's Arbor Day, there's probably a barbecue somewhere. And so.
And barbecue.
And Arbor. That's pretty funny.
That's the sound I need.
That's a pine joke if I've ever heard one.
Oh, God. This is going downhill
This
quickly.
is going downhill fast.
Yeah.
So, but I think even around like, especially major holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, as our kids get older, as my siblings started to have their own kids, I feel like there's been multiple recalibrations. We've had to kind of work that through in terms of what that looks like in each season.
My answer to the question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Eggplant. Oh, sorry. I'm a couple behind. My answer to this question is...
You know that's not a cooking answer because have you ever cooked an eggplant in your life?
Never.
Okay.
I've cooked very little. Traditions in my family. So the one thing that comes to mind is I grew up for a long time, we did not have a Christmas tree. We had one of those light up plastic manger scenes. Do you know what I'm talking about? They're like
Jesus.
They're like plastic Joseph, plastic Mary, and little plastic baby Jesus, and you plug them in. And I think part of that is why I came into our marriage with some sort of weird, like fierce attachment to having real Christmas trees. And that was something that we had to get on the same page with because Christmas trees were not cheap and we were not rolling in the dough. So there was...
Who even knows what they cost now? Because you finally did convert eventually to a artificial tree.
But that was a rough one for us to kind of get on the same page, and you finally agreed with me and it was great from then on out. So
it's like a budget item. Bethany's obsession with Christmas.
Yeah, but that's the only... Other than that, I don't feel like I know a lot of people go through the tension of who do you spend Thanksgiving with? Who do you spend Christmas with? And I don't know, like I feel like it's changed year to year, and
we like to host. I always figure with holidays, you're either traveling or you're cleaning, one or the other. And so it'll be different this year because we have new realities of even this last 2 years, we've had different realities going on. So that's okay. Yeah. It's interesting. One thing that has been interesting as your kids get older is the things that they cling on to for traditions that you like realize like, oh, they really care about whatever that is, like charcuterie and watching Home Alone or whatever things that we've kind of built in that they're like, no, we have to do this. We have to watch this movie. We have to do this type of thing. So,
yeah, I actually love that because I don't feel like I actually had a lot of really strong traditions year to year, other than obviously plastic baby Jesus was a big one. But it's fun to see our kids, the things that now when we're talking about, okay, what do we want to do for, and they'll start listing off like, these are the things that we do. So
I love giving gifts. We'd have a lot of things under the tree because, you know, when they're younger, you can spend $50 and buy 5 gifts. And I like to say that as they get older, the gifts get smaller, but more expensive. Yeah. But we've kind of pivoted more into like last year for each other, like our gift was more experience based and like, hey, we had a vacation coming up on the horizon. We're going to do some things connected to that. So that's another thing that I think we've changed over the years, and that's kind of us coming together and recalibrating things. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love this season. Our daughter put in all of her Thanksgiving requests.
I'm looking forward to her annual PowerPoint presentation of what she wants for Christmas. That usually is shown at Thanksgiving. So
okay, so what is your favorite Thanksgiving side?
My
like,
favorite,
not turkey or like.
I really like stuffing.
Yeah,
I like stuffing, mashed potatoes. Cranberry sauce.
Are you like? Do you like the one that comes out looking like a thing of jelly, or like with the actual cranberries in it? Because I'm more like the fake, like go just. Yeah,
no, not the real cranberries.
No, we do not want real cranberries.
No, that fake stuff that's still shaped like the can.
Yeah, it has the lines on the side of it. Yes, perfect. And it like makes a sound when it comes out of the can.
Yes. Now I want cranberry sauce.
I know. It's going to be soon. And then the best is having the sandwiches, like when you can make the leftover sandwiches.
It's going to be good.
Yeah, that'll be great.
All right.
Well, this is the first episode where we're going to send it into an interview. I have not heard the interview yet because you haven't done the interview yet.
I was wondering where you were going with that. I was like,
But I've heard it's fantastic. No.
it's going to be great.
Okay. So why don't you give an intro to who you chose to do for this theme? Because the idea was, and we'll see how this goes over the next couple of weeks, is to pick someone to talk to, just a short little conversation that's connected to the value. So this week is about community. So you pick somebody to talk about community. Tell me who you picked and why you picked them.
All right. Well, our friend the Johnsons are going to join me for this interview. And the reason that I chose them is they are part of a marriage club that friends of ours actually started. And it's been going for a number of years now. And it was something that when we were discussing community, I was like, oh, it'd be great to have someone from this group talk about this community that they have cultivated and just the value that it's been in their marriage. So I'm looking forward to hearing from them what it's looked like and what it's meant for them.
Well, without any further ado, here's our interview.
Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Do you hear my voice crack right then? That was really special.
That's beautiful, like a teenage boy.
Thank you guys for being here for this big special moment. I've gone through puberty now. I'm just here to celebrate.
Remember it forever.
Forever, because now it's
what
been
are friends
recorded.
for?
And Andy now has a video of it, so good times. Probably won't come back to haunt me, but thank you so much for being willing to come on the show. So I obviously know you guys, but there may be listeners who don't. So can you just take a couple of minutes, introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, my name is Ben Johnson, and I have been married to my wife, Bethany, for almost 14 years. Mm-hmm. Yes, I got it right. I'm a youth pastor or next gen pastor at a church in Hudson, Massachusetts, Grace Church.
And I am a guidance assistant at Whitensville Christian School. We met at Camp Berea.
Wow, another camp couple.
Yes.
It's adorable.
See, it does work, people. I'm just saying.
You gotta do it the right way. You got to do it the right way.
Very true. Very true. Well, part of why I was really excited to have you come on the show is I have heard whispers, rumors, just hints here and there of something I believe is called the Marriage Club. And I'm just wondering maybe if you could share with us a little bit about what this Marriage Club is.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, those speakeasies where you got to knock on the door and there's a password for it. So that's how you get in.
And there's not that many people involved. So the fact that someone broke the NDA, we're going to track them down real quick. It goes back to the camp director at the camp that we met and worked at for 12 years. We had asked him to marry us, and he had actually married a couple other couples before us.
Ceremony.
That's true. He didn't marry them all. We have to be very clear about that.
It's not that type of marriage club, guys. Let's be
what
clear.
Kind of marriage club?
We operate out of Utah. But,
No. Gosh.
But part of the marriage kind of counseling that we went through as we had asked him to marry us, he said, hey, we want to bring in one of the couples we've married before and have him kind of share with you, hey, what was nonsense that we said that they felt was just like, hey, this didn't help us. We don't know if it was true. We think it's just their problem. Or like, here was things we wish we had heard. Through the experience, we actually said, well, it'd be kind of fun if we could get, a couple of the other couples. And they had said, hey, that would work. And it worked out for everybody to come. And so once we had kind of done that, because he had done it before just with a single other couple, and then they added another couple when we did it. And then there were several others that also asked this key individual, Nate Parks, to marry them. And so it slowly began to add as people would say, hey, like, I would like you to perform the marriage ceremony. But the big thing that kind of grassroots tied it together, because I do think it'd be really challenging to duplicate like forcefully this experience, was as every couple came in, they said, yeah, we want to let others into our life and we are willing to do this and hear their story. And so what became just, we only did it when somebody else was going through this counseling. We decided to start doing it annually or biannually, or the reality is life is what it is when we can. And we've kind of consistently settled on like twice a year. We try to get together and then have group chats where we harass each other, because that's an important part of a marriage club.
Yeah.
Harassment. I love that.
Yes.
First of all, I just think the little bit that I've known about it, It's part of why you like this came to mind is I think there is not enough of this kind of community that exists,
Definitely.
especially with marriages nowadays. Having those people, I love, Ben, what you shared, the willingness to speak into. I just think it's a cool thing to be like, hey, we want to bring this couple in and just have them tell you straight, like what was helpful, what was
Mm.
not. I wonder, what are some of just the greatest value that you've gained from being a part of this community? The things that you've seen maybe in your marriage that have been a benefit?
I definitely think just having a group of people that you feel really comfortable just sharing everything with. There are things that only Ben and the people from Marriage Club know, because it's that type of space where from the very beginning, it was just constantly said, this is a safe place. Nothing goes outside of this group. And that just really allowed us to just share openly things that we were struggling with or succeeding with. And just being able to be open about those types of things without feeling judged, or to hear other people say, that's exactly what we're going through. This is how we're dealing with it. To not feel so alone in what we're dealing with, and to just be able to bounce ideas off of each other. And I think hearing the male perspective outside of my husband's perspective as well.
How dare you? I'm the only perspective you need.
Is really
Time
helpful.
to schedule another group.
Yes, exactly. Well, I take notes throughout the year. So
she does threaten to tattle on me on the regular.
Yes. But that's really important. And for Ben to hear another female perspective in a marriage, to be like, oh yeah, this is what she's trying to say, and maybe sort of translate, so to speak, what each other is going through. That's been very helpful.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I think is crucial when it comes to having a community that revolves around kind of married couples is there's an aspect where everybody kind of goes in this position or a space where they're like, well, you know, we don't want to judge like social media, and I'm constantly comparing myself to other couples. And I think there is a healthy and an unhealthy version of that. And so when we get together, there's times where we come and we're like, man, things are a mess. And we come with stuff that like we're going to share, and we don't know if we're going to get through it. And there are tears that are shared. There's laughter that is shared. I'm oftentimes walking away and hearing is like, oh, you know, like the circumstances that we're experiencing, you know what? There are other people that are in our close trusted life that are experiencing things that are just as substantial, or perhaps in our perspective, man, maybe even harder than ours. And that's a sobering reminder that like, hey, God is faithful through the things that we are experiencing. And in the same time, we can speak in as like, hey, God has been faithful in this, and that sounds really tough too. And so we are confident he's gonna be faithful through that. We always kind of joke when we get together. It's like, man, we need to make sure we have more of this outside of these two events. And it's something where we're not perfect either. And so we have a group chat on Messenger that we consistently are kind of like, we should be better at this. We should be better. If you look at our group chat, it's like us constantly reminding each other we should do more. And so we have done things like the guys have gotten together and gone skiing together. Not proud of this because I never win and I don't succeed, but we've tried to do weight loss things together, just things where we can do life together, because it's more than just meeting up once or twice a year. But it is something that has provided a community where, even though oftentimes it might be a couple months where we go between really sharing something challenging or heavy, because we don't necessarily talk about every moment 24 hours a day. That's a fallacy. I think people feel like, oh, well, if I'm not constantly talking all the time, we don't have that community. Is no, it's like your best friends, your closest college roommates you remember, is like when you get together, it comes back. I guess the way I could put it is I went to a conference a couple of years back when I was working at camp still, and the speaker shared that they were a missionary in Africa, and that in Africa in the bush, they said, you know what, you need to have the 4 friends that you know could carry you out if something happened to you in the bush. And like that really resonated with me, is like, who are the 4 people who, if I knew Bethany had to call them and be like, you got to carry my husband's body out of the woods and out of the bush, like that would be willing to lift my weight, which is a substantial quantity. That really has been something that's resonated about this group, is I know we could call on those 4 people if something happened to me that could take care of my family, or something that would happen to Bethany that would make sure that my daughter still grew up somewhat sane. And I believe that those people would rise to that occasion. And they've committed to saying, hey, we're going to knock on your door if stuff starts going wrong. We're not going to like it. You're not going to like it. It's going to be uncomfortable for everybody. But if one of the 2 of you start stepping out, we're going to come and we're going to make trouble to help fix what's wrong.
That's awesome. That's actually one of the thoughts I had. Are there sort of, again, not to dig into things you can't share that are obviously part of your group, but are there sort of things that you feel like have been important to just as a group to commit to one another that sort of help build this community?
Well, I think, and I'll give my wife time to process and talk, as I've learned that through Marriage Club, is different people communicate in different ways and need more or less time.
Very valuable.
But I think that, for me, one of the things is just knowing your core people, where once again, sometimes we look in a mentor or someone who's going to be an accountability partner, we look for it to be someone who's like a super close friend and is like the person you call every single day nonstop. And that's not always the person. Sometimes those people are easier to hide things from. But the reality is having the person that you can kind of go to that, hey, I can tell them the things that are going on. They will go back and forth between, but also knowing that they will loop in the other guys, loop in people that'll know. And so from the very beginning, that was something that had been talked about during the initial marriage counseling. Is Nate, the guy who married us, had said, listen, I don't marry a lot of people. I'm not, a pastor at a church where I have these questions all the time. And he started that kind of phrase with us. So like, I'm going to knock on your door. And so we have really tried to just rally around, not firing up anger in each other too. I think that's an important thing, is when in this group, and I think that's healthy, is we don't just heap on, because that's an easy thing to do in a community of people that are together. A number of us are in pastoral situations. And so when something happens and there's church hurt, people know that can be really challenging. And so it can be easy to be like, well, that's not fair and that's not right. We're going to pray against that. But identifying the things that are mature in that person as they deal through their hurts, whether it be church hurt or any kind of hurt, maybe it's extended family hurt, but not just kind of punching down on it and saying, oh, that stinks, and I'm mad with you, but it's like hurting with people, but also trying to rally to lift one another up. And that's a commitment we've always tried to make to each other, is not to live in the negative space, but always to help how can we rise up and how can we lift each other up together, because that's what God has made marriage to be.
I think something that I really appreciate about Marriage Club, and I'm not sure it's something that has been voiced specifically, but I think just having an atmosphere when we're all together that you can just be you. You can just relax. It started as this very formal, like, get together, question and answer, and it sort of has evolved into this. We're going to spend time to update each other on our lives, but then we're also just going to hang out. And there are times in the afternoon where someone fell asleep on the couch, another person is reading in the corner, a couple people went for a walk, and it's just the time to refresh and just do whatever you want to do. And that's really nice, because I found that it's a very safe place for me. It doesn't matter if I'm just sitting quietly in the corner. It doesn't matter if I open a book that everyone's like, that's a weird book, why are you reading that? It's just
fantasy. I just want to be clear. Fantasy books, not like weird books, because I know you listeners out there where your minds went.
Well, I don't read a lot of those, like the spiritual wife and all this stuff. I like fiction, fantasy books, and it's not something that I come across. So just being there and being able to relax, and it doesn't have to be this buttoned up thing. It can just be people hanging out, and relating to each other.
That's awesome. One of the things Andy and I were discussing earlier is this idea of community, that when you commit to that, like trying to build community and be a part of it, that it can be difficult. Ben, you mentioned early on, sometimes just life being crazy and all the things. But for you guys, what have been some of the challenges for you in terms of keeping this community and continuing to cultivate and grow it?
Yeah, I think for us, having a daughter and then a dog and then moving to Massachusetts it hasn't been too difficult, but definitely being able to find childcare for Penny, because you can't really be completely open about struggles when your kid is sitting right in the corner and like, what do you mean you're having trouble with parenting, mommy? So it's like that sort of thing where we know that we want to keep going and we want to be real. So what can we do to make sure that we can still be real in those moments? Like there was 1 year where we had to bring Penny and we didn't have childcare for her. So when we knew she was asleep, we're like, okay, we need to share now, because when she's awake tomorrow morning, we're not going to be able to go as deep as we want to with these conversations. So just seeing for us And for every couple, it looks differently. What do we need to do to make sure that we can be present 100%, not just for ourselves and what we need to share open and honestly, but so that we're present for everyone else who's sharing and crying. And I'm not, worrying about the dog or worrying about this sort of thing. Like, I want to be able to be present for other people's stories and hurts and joys as well.
And we've gone through seasons where I think it's important for people to understand and realize when they are thinking about trying to foster something like this, where we've left weekends feeling like, you know what, this might be the last one we ever do, because people are sharing like, hey, like we've actually really connected with our small group nearby, and because of how invested we are with them, it becomes difficult time-wise to do things like this, or we need special thought put into how we're going to do things, and we don't want to put that on other people in the same way that we martyr ourselves sometimes by not asking for things. I mean, even this last time we had just gotten a puppy and kind of threw out, I was like, hey, like, can we bring the puppy? And the long story short, it would have been a terrible idea. We were just looking for options because the puppy's chaotic. But as we talked through, people initially was like, oh, this is a barrier because we don't know what we're going to do with this puppy. But we ended up finding out something to do with it because we knew it was important to everyone in the group, that there was multiple people that were like, hey, I don't love this idea. And we had to immediately put ourselves in a position of like, okay, if we're committed to this group and it's not a wonderful idea for even one person, not to mention a couple, then we've got to figure out how to not do it. And the same goes, as she mentioned, like with different phases of life, whether it's job changes or childcare, or we have people that end up having traveling jobs. And there's a couple that lives in Utah. And so we've even tried to figure out how do we ease that financial burden, because it's not fair to our group to say, hey, we're all in this together, and just be like, but only one of you has to spend like $500 to get here when the rest of us spend like 20 in gas. So I think the key thing is that everyone needs to be committed. And there have been seasons where, not everybody who started in the marriage club that we have is still a part of it. And that's heartbreaking to us. And we wish that they were, and the door is open for every couple who has, but we have maintained the vast majority of couples that have entered in are still engaged with it because it's important to them. And I do think that's a huge thing, is you can't have someone involved that's only half in it, because people can sniff that out right away. I don't know how someone could create this other than a grassroots where it's birthed out of something that God has for you. And that's why we are so incredibly blessed by it, because if I tried to go back, even with what I know now, and recreate it in the past, I'm not sure I necessarily could. But God had something at this point in time for us. And I think that there are people out there that God does have this for them at this point in time, but it might just be a fear that it would fail, or a fear that they don't want to try it if it's going to fall apart. And I think that keeps people from seeing that, hey, this is something that God has for me.
No, it's awesome just to hear both of you share, and the same messaging from both of you that I'm hearing is not just what this brings to your marriage, but it's just cool to hear your heart for even how you show up in it, that you're like, what we bring to this matters too. And I think that's a huge part of community. I honestly think as people are listening to this and maybe they're thinking like, gosh, what would that even look like? Just thinking about, first of all, it doesn't need to start with a bunch of other couples. Maybe it's just finding one other couple and you start there. And thinking about these themes that you guys have shared, of one, creating a safe place, and then also just that kind of place where you are, yes, it's going to be a gift to your marriage, but also that you're there to serve and be present for the other relationships. And then just hearing from you, like the beauty that can create, and what God can do in that kind of a space is pretty awesome.
And I think that, to people who are interested in doing something like this, the thing that I think has held us together for, now, I mean, so we're not even the couple that's been there the longest, but we're more or less there for kind of the inception at 13 years. So it probably goes back to 15, maybe 16, from when the very first couple engaged, started that first marriage counseling, like jumping back in thing. Is that when we sit down and we look at this and we talk with people and have side conversations with individuals in the group, as you have a conversation, it sounds like, oh, you know what, this date, we're just not going to be able to make it work. And it's like, oh, that's devastating. Like, well, when will we get together again? And sometimes the answer is, well, right now we're not sure. And that could be discouraging, and that could end a group where it's just like, oh, well, I guess we'll just see maybe when everyone gets together. But Bethany and I have talked, and I can echo that I know other couples have shared the same conversation and sentiment is like, this is something to me that is worth fighting for. And even if this group dropped down to 2 couples or 3 couples, I know there are 2 or 3 others that will still do this no matter what. If there's something in your life that you're like, this is one of the most important things, even though we only do it like twice a year, every time I walk away from this, I know that this is probably one of the most valuable things that I have done this year in possibly ministry and in prolonging my ministry or in our marriage or in our family. And we just walk away feeling so full, is knowing is like, well, I will fight to keep making that happen. Mm-hmm. And when you find a group of people where the sentiment is that same thing, then as rocky as it gets, it gets. And if you have to skip a time or a season of year that you always get together because it's just not going to work, it doesn't matter. We're still going to commit to another time. We're going to figure out another time because all of us want to fight for this. And I think that's what holds it together.
That's awesome. Well, I am grateful for your guys' willingness to just share about this. And my hope is people hearing this and maybe getting just an idea outside the box of maybe what they've imagined in terms of community in their marriage, and maybe even the courage to take that step to be like, you know what, we're gonna start hosting another couple or a couple of couples, or let's go to Utah. I don't know, whatever.
And I feel like an important thing too is always to remember in the process, don't take yourself too seriously, which is why we do call it Marriage Club, because it's pretty much the lamest name for something you could possibly imagine. And that was the pitch from the get-go. And we all just do call it Marriage Club instead of something else, because you got to be able to take things in stride. You got to be able to laugh together. You got to be able to cry together. You got to be able to just do life together and not take yourselves too seriously, because there are a lot of serious moments. But I think just like any couple and any family is like, you share the highs, the lows, the mids, the laughter, the tears, the everything. So make sure you call it Marriage Club. We won't come after you. It's not an LLC. We won't sue you. We share that with everybody.
Marriage Club. And hey, they've just released the rights to this name. This is what I'm hearing. So
we do. We want to share with everybody.
I don't know.
I love
think
it.
Nate Parks might have something to say about that.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Great job, Bethany.
Thank you.
I feel like you may have done an interview or 2 in your past, or 500. I don't know how many you've done.
A lot. It's been a lot. So, but some people are just easier to interview. I'm just saying.
So we'll be back next week. We're going to be releasing episodes each Monday. Next week, what are we talking about?
We're going to our second value, which is authenticity.
That's right.
We'll probably share something really scandalous.
I'm going to be very abstract and not say anything. That's my
Nope. I'm going to dig it out of you.
Dig it out? Oh.
Yep. Your favorite sin.
Top 10?
Yeah. Biggest secret.
Great.
All the things.
How can people stay connected to what we're doing, and how can they show some support for the SOS? Slightly off script. What are we calling these? SOSers? What are we calling our people?
I don't know. I feel like it'll come. I don't know yet. But here's how they can show support, though. They can for sure help us by subscribing on YouTube. Because if you didn't catch the first episode, I'm looking for 500, minimum 500 subscribers so that Andy has to do a TikTok dance of your choosing. I added that part in. 500 helps us to be able to do more things on that platform, some things that we would like to kind of grow into. And so even if you don't watch it on YouTube, just going and clicking subscribe is a huge help to us. And yeah, anywhere you listen, like.
Yeah, a review or whatever platform, if they have a thumbs up or whatever it happens to be, it's helpful. Yeah.
We love your 5-star reviews. And if you have like 1 or 2-star reviews, you can maybe hop over to another podcast and leave them there.
And then finally, in the show notes, there's a note about how you could submit a question. You can send a text question in, or you can actually record yourself and send it in, and we will use our magical mixer, and we may just use your question in a future episode, which we would love to have people do that.
Even if you send in a joke question with an accent that we're not quite sure where it's really from,
then we're probably definitely going to shame you. No, we're going to use it. Just kidding.
It's going to happen. I'm just fair warning.
That's
just
great.
So you know.
All right. Well, thanks, Bethany. Great job.
Yeah. Thanks for being here with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awkward. All right.
Say goodbye.
Bye.